Welcome to Financial Aid Series Part 2, Filing the FAFSA. Once you have created your FSA ID and your parent has created their FSA ID, you can begin your FAFSA. You can do so by following the red address listed below on this slide. Once you get to the website, you can select Start Here next to the red arrow there. And be sure to select that you are the student and you're filling this out with your information. On this slide here, be sure to enter in your FSA ID that you had created for yourself. Don't use your parents' FSA ID because if you do, the FAFSA will be in their name and we want it in your name. So be sure to select your information. And here you'll be hitting accept. And then this is just letting you know that you will see 2 different academic years as options when you log into the FAFSA. The current academic year will be available as well as the following academic year. So be sure to select the year that you will be enrolling in. The first thing the FAFSA is going to ask you to do is create a save key. And this is a temporary password that you can use if you need to log back in and continue where you left off. If you're not able to complete the FAFSA in your first sitting, it's able to allow you to save where you are. So that way, when you log back in, you can pick up where you left off. The first section here is student demographics. So you are going to be reviewing the information brought over from your FSA ID. So making sure your social is correct, your first and last name are spelled correctly, and your date of birth is correct. Here is your student, the student residency and citizenship. And then this information is on Selective Service. So you're going to answer if you are a male or female right there. And then if you are registered with the Selective Service system. If not, you are able to register at sss.gov. And in Wisconsin, we do need to collect this information for state grant purposes. Here you're going to be entering in your education, so your high school diploma at the top there, what college degree you'll be working on. This could be your first bachelor's degree or an associate's degree. You will not have your first bachelor's degree as you will start this academic year. And then the college grade level you will be beginning with. For first year students, your grade level will be first year. That'll be an option on that drop down there. And then if you are interested in work study, most schools are going to package your financial aid with work study on there regardless. So this is just asking you if you are interested, but you can decide later on when school begins as well. This page is asking some parent information if you are a foster youth, and then also the highest school completed by parent. In the drop down there, there'll be middle school, high school, college, grad school options that you can select for your parents. Here you're going to be adding your high school. You can search for your high school by state, city, or even the high school name. And then on the following page, it'll allow you to select your high school and add it to the FAFSA. Same thing with the college search, similar search field, but this is asking you to add the colleges on that you would like your application sent to. It's important to note that you can add up to 10 colleges on your FAFSA. If you have more than 10 colleges you're interested in, what you'll do is add 10 now, submit your FAFSA, and then you will have to go back in, delete some of the colleges and add the new colleges and resubmit your FAFSA. And now we are going to get into the dependency questions, and this will determine a student's dependency status. So first, they will enter their marital status, if they're single or married. Next questions are if you have dependents, so if you have children or any other dependents who receive more than half of your support. The next string of questions are based on active duty, if you're a veteran, if your parents are deceased, emancipated minor, and legal guardianship. So if you answer yes to any of those, the financial aid office will be in contact with you just to get some additional information so we can complete your FAFSA and see what else you are eligible for. And then the last one there is on student homelessness. The last dependent question is asking you to provide information on your parents. If you're unable to provide information on your parents, you'll select that second button there and hit continue. It will skip over the next two sections and ask for your finances. What will happen after you submit the FAFSA is the financial aid office would be in contact with you asking for additional information on this. But most of the time you will need to provide your parents' information. So you will select that top button, hit continue. Here's where you'll enter your parents' marital status. Because the FAFSA is a snapshot of your current situation, but it is based on taxes from prior year, which is 2 years ago, it does get confusing. So be sure to enter the marital status as you're filling out the FAFSA. Here you're going to enter your information for your first parent. So their social security number, their last name, first initial, their date of birth, and their email address. And you'll hit continue and do the same thing for your second parent, if applicable. And then their legal residence. And then the next page is going to ask for information regarding their dependents. So with these questions, you're not going to include yourself. So you'll answer the question based on if you have siblings, and if there's any other dependents that live with your parents and they currently receive more than half of their support. Once this is filled out, you'll hit continue, and then you'll see a summary box right there under parent household information. And this is giving you what you had entered in on the previous page. If you look at this and you realize that isn't right, you can hit previous there and fix the mistakes that you had made on that page. Hit continue again, and it should update in that box. Below there, you will see the number in college. So if you have any other siblings in the household that are attending college, you'll go ahead and add them in that box. Be sure not to include yourself, because since you're filling out the FAFSA, it assumes that you will be in college the following year. And be sure not to include your parents. Here is when you will fill out your parents' finances. So with the FAFSA, you are going to be filling out their finances based off of prior year, so 2 years ago. For example, if you're filling out the FAFSA for 2023-24, you're going to be using 2021 tax information. Here you see we're filling it out for academic year 2022-2023. So that we're using 2020 information, but it is always going to be prior year. So 2 years prior to the academic year you're filling the FAFSA out for. So the first question there is asking if they had already completed their tax return or if they're going to be filing it. And then it's asking for the type of tax return that they did file and the status that they filed. And it is recommended to use the IRS data retrieval tool. And what this does is it transfers their tax information directly to the FAFSA. So it saves a lot of steps for you finding your tax return and entering all the information in. So by hitting that blue button down there, you're going to be proceeding to the IRS website. You'll select it again here. And here you are going to select which parent of yours has the FSA ID, parent 1 or parent 2, and then they are going to put their information in there and hit continue. This will bring you over to the IRS website. And what they need to make sure they're paying attention to is the spelling of their first and last names, their social, which should be correct because it is the information that you had entered in for your FSA ID, which went through a social security mismatch. And then at the bottom there, what the red arrow is pointing to is the address. This needs to match exactly what was on the tax return. You can disregard 2019 there. When you do go into the IRS from the FAFSA, it will tell you exactly what tax return you should be referring to. Like I said prior to this slide, you're always going to be looking at prior year. So you'll want to make sure that that street address matches exactly what is on your tax return. Once you reviewed all that information, you're going to hit submit there in blue, and then it'll bring you to this page. You will need to make sure that you check the box in the small red circle there, which is telling this site to transfer your tax information back over to the FAFSA. Once that box is selected, the transfer now box will turn blue, and then you're going to select that box. There are certain tax filers that cannot use this tool, and they are indicated below. That would be situations like if you had not already filled out a tax return, if your marriage date is later than the tax year that you are filing for. You see the first 3 digits of your social are 666. If you did not file a US tax return, if you are married and file head of household or file separate returns, you'll need to enter in your information manually. And then once that information is transferred back to the FAFSA, it's going to continue on with the parent financials. So if you did use the IRS data retrieval tool, it is going to populate your AGI. But if you did not use it, you are going to enter this manually using your tax return. And then the bottom snapshot there, you can find that information off of your parents' W-2s for that year. So for instance, we are filling this out right now for 2022-23. So you're going to be looking at the 2020 W-2s. But if this is for a different FAFSA for in the future, 2023-24, you're just going to be looking at your parents' prior year W-2s. And this information you are going to work with your parents on to enter in this information. So you're going to be looking at combat pay and special pay, student college grant and scholarship aid reported to the FAFSA, education credits, and most of these, it'll tell you which lines on the tax return to enter in. Untaxed portions of IRA distributions, IRA deductions and payments, and tax exempt. Again, if you see towards the ends of those lines, it'll tell you which lines on your tax return you should be referring to. And if you do have questions on this as you're filling it out, feel free to contact the financial aid office. They can help you out with this as well. And then the next page over, the additional financial information, it's asking for child support paid, taxable earnings, and earnings from work under the cooperative education program offered by a college. So if any of these were to apply to your parents, they would go ahead and fill those out and hit continue. And then continuing on into the parent untaxed income, they would enter in any child support received, any housing, food, and other living expenses paid, payments to tax deferred pension. And in some of these, it shows you where you can get these numbers, like in the payments to tax deferred pension, you can look at your parents' W-2s, veterans non-education benefits, and any other untaxed income not reported. So if any of that applies to your parents, you'll go ahead and fill in those numbers there. And then the last section of the parent financials is the parent assets. So as of today, just give a rough estimate of what is your parents' total current balance of cash, checking, and savings accounts. And then as of today, what is the net worth of your parents' investments? And I believe on the next slide here, there'll be information on investments to help rule what is and what is not. And then as of today, what is the net worth of your parents' current businesses and or farms? If you see the little question mark next to all of these boxes, if you click that, it's going to give you some additional information on what this question is asking. So it'll help you narrow down if this applies to you or if it does not. So the assets on the FAFSA, this is what we discussed on the previous slide. Assets to be reported on the left here are savings accounts, stocks, bonds, money markets, CDs, UGMAs, UTMAs, trust funds, investment real estate, qualified education benefits. And then on the right there, just a couple assets to not report, which would be the house that you live in, including a family farm, life insurance, or retirement plans. So now the next section is going to be about you, the student. So you're basically going to be filling out all the same information that we had for the parent, but for yourself. So if you had filed taxes in the prior year, then you would select already completed. If you did not file taxes, if you didn't work, or if you didn't make enough to have to file, you would select will not file. And if you do select that, the other questions gray out because they would not be applicable to you. So here it is asking if you did file your tax return, you have the option to use the IRS data retrieval tool, which will bring your taxes directly over to the FAFSA. And we'll go through the same information that we did with your parents. So if you, oh, I'm sorry, this skipped ahead past the IRS data retrieval tool. So you would follow the same directions as with your parents and bring your information over. And once you do, you'll go through the same kind of questions that you did with the parent financials. And once you're done with that, then it's going to bring you over to the sign and submit page. So this is signing your FAFSA. What you're going to do is carefully read through all of this information. Once it's done, you're going to select I, yourself, agree to the terms outlined above and sign your FAFSA. So here it's showing that you signed it with your FSA ID, but it still needs a parent signature. So what your parent is going to do is select provide parent signature, and they're going to enter in their FSA ID and information. Once that is done, oh, and there is an option here to, if for some reason their FSA ID is not working, if you see options at the bottom to sign and submit, there are other options to print the signature page to sign wet and then mail to the financial aid office, or you can mail it directly into FAFSA. Once this is signed by both yourself and your parent and you submit it, you're going to see a screen like this saying congratulations, your FAFSA form was successfully submitted to federal student aid. You're going to see a confirmation number as well as a data release number, a DRN. Should be a 4-digit number, and you will receive this through email as well. The DRM number is important to keep handy, or at least not to delete the email, because if you find that you didn't add a school to your list of schools that you're interested in, or if you applied to a school and they're asking you to file the FAFSA, you can just give them the DRN number and they are able to request your FAFSA. So it'll kind of save you a step on going back in, adding them and submitting it again. And on the right there, you're going to see the schools that you have on your FAFSA, some information regarding those schools, and they should receive your FAFSA within 2 to 3 business days. Here, it's going to give you a little bit more information on your FAFSA, including the expected family contribution. Now that we have completed the FAFSA, the next step in our series is called Next Steps. Thank you.